Well, I just hate losing. It's a tough loss. They played extremely well. We just have to get ready for the off season. Next season for us starts right now.
How much harder will you work in this off season now to get back to the championship?
I'll push myself to exhaustion.
Kobe, we thank you for your time.
With many of you guys seeming to really enjoy the MJ revenge video I recently posted, I figured why not do the same thing about his protege, Kobe Bryant. I'm sure Bob Bass, then general manager of the Charlotte Hornets, was kicking himself for many years after dealing him to the Lakers in exchange for Vlade Divac, and Bass clearly didn't know what he had because he told Bryant this after they traded him: "We couldn't have used you anyway." And that ignited a fire in Kobe to go out there and be the best player he can possibly be. And the player he became closely resembled Michael Jordan. Both had the mentality to totally demolish anyone in their path, and Kobe had no problem going after Jordan himself. He didn't care if Michael was once his idol. He dropped 55 points on MJ's head after he said that Kobe would never be able to fill his shoes. He had that psychotic characteristic, just like Mike did, and here's some stories that prove it. I'm sure I can speak for everyone when I say that rivalries are one of the best parts of the game of basketball. You got Bird and Magic, Jordan and the Pistons, and you can even throw in the Warriors and Cavs. Storylines like those make the game so much better. But there is one rivalry that doesn't seem to get as much attention as the others: Allen Iverson and Kobe Bryant. And it practically began right from the jump. AI was taken #1 overall by Kobe's hometown team, and that had to have stung a little bit, which led to Bryant developing an early obsession with Iverson. And the first piece of evidence takes us all the way back to November 12th, 1996. That night, Kobe only scored 2 points against the Houston Rockets, while Iverson, who played the New York Knicks on the same night, scored 35 points at the Garden. And when Kobe found out the kind of game Iverson had compared to the 2-point game he had, he was livid. Quote, "When I checked into my hotel room later that night and saw the 35 on SportsCenter, I lost it. I flipped the table, threw the chairs, and broke the TV." Iverson's early success fueled him to become better, but that wasn't the only time Iverson outperformed Bryant. It was March 19th, 1999, Lakers visiting Philadelphia. Kobe Bryant made an attempt to guard Iverson, but almost from the beginning, it was clear there was nothing he can do to stop him.
Travel, no. Dribble, right shuts him off. Now here's Iverson dribbling. Going back and forth, shoots a long outside jumper and hits it. Wow!
Okay, that wasn't bad defense at all by Kobe.
The combination of quickness and speed AI brought to the court looked to be too much for the Lakers. Iverson was dominating from all areas, absolutely demoralizing Kobe all night long. AI ended the game with an impressive 41 points, defeating LA in a blowout fashion. Many years later, Kobe described just how painful that loss was. Quote, "I remember being on the bus saying, you know what, I've got to become one of the best defensive players of all time because I can't have this happen again." And he went on to say, "I obsessively watched every game he played. I obsessively searched for any weakness I could find." And about a year later, all that studying looked to have paid off. It was February 20th, 2000, in Philadelphia once again. Phil Jackson gave Kobe the assignment of guarding Iverson, and he made sure to remember what happened last time. Quote, "No one knew how much this challenge meant to me, and I wanted him to feel the frustration I felt. I wanted everyone who laughed at the 41-10 he put on me to choke on their laughter." And right from the start, Kobe's defense was a nightmare for Iverson. However, Kobe would get carried away, picking up 2 early fouls in the first quarter, so Derek Fisher had to step up and guard Iverson, while Kobe sat out for a period of time. Kobe would come back in the second quarter, but wouldn't guard AI because he wanted to avoid picking up a crucial third foul, so he contributed on offense instead. But when the second half came along, his main focus was to shut down Iverson. Every time Iverson got the ball, Kobe smothered him, forcing AI to give up the ball, leaving him extremely frustrated. Kobe blocked Iverson 4 times that night, altering his shot every chance he can get, completely locking him down the entire second half. And perhaps the best block came in the final seconds of the game. AI took it to the basket in an attempt to take the lead, but it was none other than Kobe Bryant who prevented that from happening. Now wait until you hear this. Remember when Derek Fisher had to guard Iverson in the first half? Well, Iverson put up 16 points on him, but by the end of the game, after Kobe took over, Iverson finished the game with the exact 16 points, leaving Iverson scoreless in the entire second half. Kobe accomplished exactly what he wanted to do, but he wasn't satisfied after the win. Quote, "I was annoyed that he made me feel that way in the first place. I swore from that point on, no one was going to have that kind of control over my focus ever again." If you're a person who plays a lot of basketball, you've probably had this feeling before, when you think you're playing pretty good defense on someone, but you end up getting humiliated instead. And it's only natural to crave instant revenge. You just can't wait to get him back. Well, don't worry, because it happened to Kobe as well. Every time he went up against Tracy McGrady, we all knew it was gonna be a show. And T-Mac got the best of Bryant right here.
That post-entry pass was just too soft and out of his wheelhouse. McGrady, what a move. He's able to bail his teammate out there.
Man, after a move like that, all you can do is tip your hat. But Kobe automatically went into payback mode, and he got it.
Kobe!
There's really no better feeling than that. Just some good old competitive fun. But the payback Kobe got on Mike Miller was far from friendly. As you can see, Mike Miller inadvertently elbows Bryant right in the face, cutting the top of his left eye.
Kobe had something to say to Mike Miller as he walked by him. And the one thing you don't want to do with Kobe is make him too upset, because he gets even more aggressive when he gets upset.
The cut was so bad that he actually was forced to go back to the locker room and have it checked out. But everyone in the building knew Miller would be in deep trouble when he gets back.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go get a stitch. Look at Kobe. You can see him going off the court. He's upset. That's bad news. That's bad news.
Well, we'll find out. The old don't get mad, get even.
So eventually, he would return shortly after, and you could tell Kobe was stalking his prey, just waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike.
Gasol trying to get to the basket against him. Miller.
Ooh,
man, that's a hard.
That's going to be a flagrant one. There's the payback right there. Kobe stuck the elbow out. That was the payback. You knew it was going to happen sooner or later.
When Kobe came into the league in '96, he no longer was the top dog on his team like he was back in high school. Eddie Jones was still their go-to shooting guard. Bryant was not getting as much playing time as he would have liked. And his first head coach, Del Harris, never really saw eye to eye with the young prodigy. And here's what Bryant had to say years later about his relationship with Harris. Quote, "He pushed me back then to try to be as efficient as possible to get some minutes on the floor. I had to earn everything I got. I'm very appreciative now, but I'd be lying if I said that wasn't part of the motivation." Harris would go on to coach Bryant and the Lakers up until the year 1999, where he was ultimately fired for a very poor start to that season. And Kobe wasn't upset at all about his departure. He couldn't stand the guy. Quote, "When I was a rookie, I hated Del. I always said, if I get a chance to get revenge, I'm going to get it." And on December 20th, 2005, he certainly got it. You see, that night, the Lakers went up against the Dallas Mavericks, and Kobe knew that Del Harris would be in attendance because he was the assistant coach of the Mavs. And when you're on the opposing team, Kobe will make it his goal to rip your heart out, especially Del Harris. All those bad memories suddenly came back when he saw Harris over there on the bench and went on a mission to destroy. No, they didn't have a dance battle. Kobe did something even more insane. He scored an amazing 62 points in just 3 quarters, outscoring the Mavs by himself, and always played with a vengeance whenever he faced those particular Mavericks. Speaking of Dallas, there was another instance where Kobe had something to prove. If you're not quite sure what the NBA amnesty clause is, it basically provides NBA franchises the opportunity to escape any contract tied to a player whose performance is not living up to the large amount of money that was initially agreed to. Well, Mark Cuban did not believe that Bryant was worthy of the kind of money he was earning in the 2013 season. Mark Cuban suggested that the Lakers should amnesty Kobe Bryant. Okay, the Lakers were deep into the luxury tax, and Kobe was the highest paid player on the team, so I guess you can say Mark Cuban's comments were somewhat understandable, but even at that time, Kobe was still considered one of, if not the best, shooting guard in the NBA, so it was kinda pointless for Mark Cuban to come out and say such a thing. All he did was add fuel to his fire. First off, Kobe had to take some of his frustration out on the Portland Trail Blazers, dropping 40 points on the day Mark Cuban made those initial statements. And Mark Cuban couldn't have possibly picked a worse time to say what he said, because just 2 days later, it was none other than the Dallas Mavericks who was next on the Lakers' schedule. Hollywood couldn't have scripted it any better. Kobe went out there with everything still fresh in his mind. It was a close game throughout the contest, but when the fourth quarter came along, Kobe was lights out. He had a fierce look in his eyes that was scary, making Jay Crowder look foolish all night long, knocking down tough shot after tough shot, as he ultimately ended the game with 38 points, showing that he was still an elite player in the league, and there was only one other thing he had to do to cap it off: amnesty that. For most of the 2000s, Kobe and D. Wade have been regarded as two of the top shooting guards in basketball and have shared some epic battles between each other on the court. And it's no surprise that D. Wade had a ton of admiration for Kobe growing up, and that respect was mutual. Kobe never hesitated to reach out to Wade for advice.
I get a call from this unknown number, and it keeps calling me and calling me. So eventually I answer it, and it's Kobe on the phone. I run outside immediately because Kobe's calling me, and he said, hey, and this is one of the greatest players to ever play, and he's reaching out to me, a younger player.
But just because you may be cool with somebody doesn't mean you're exempt from some revenge. On December 19th, 2008, almost 2 years after Wade dislocated his shoulder, he was finally starting to look like his old self again, feeling revitalized. And with Kobe on the other side, only got his blood pumping even more.
You gotta defend. You're talking about picture-perfect defense. Fight over the screen, keep a body on the best player in Bryant, and then guys help be in position, contest shots, force them into a turnover.
Dwayne Wade was clearly going at Bryant, displaying relentless effort on both ends of the court. Kobe does cut it to a 2-point game with under a minute left, but wasn't able to hit the biggest shot of the game that would have forced overtime.
Here's what you expected. Bryant drives right, drives left. Bryant pulls up, jumpers up, in and out, no good at the buzzer. That ball halfway down, and the Heat hold on for victory.
Wade finished the game with 35 points, just barely squeezing out the victory. But about a year later, he would be the one experiencing heartbreak at the buzzer.
Chest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up at the buzzer, banks it in! He banks in the three! And the Lakers win the game!
That shot must have felt incredible right in D-Wade's grill. But hold on, they weren't done with each other yet. March 4th, 2012, Miami once again in the Staples Center. But this time, D-Wade had LeBron with him to take on Kobe and the Lakers. Now, you would think that the fans would be looking forward to witnessing a Kobe versus LeBron matchup, but they were more interested in the Kobe versus Wade aspect instead, because just a week earlier at the 2012 All-Star Game, Dwayne Wade got a little too physical with Bryant and ended up breaking his nose. Kobe did play it cool because it was a family event, but after the game, he had a little message for Wade.
I called him, you know, I didn't maliciously do it. I called him and I said, yo, Kobe. He was like, bro, I'll see you in a couple of days. I'm like, oh, this, oh, snap.
So when their next matchup came along, Kobe was eager to get him back, as the masked Mamba was unleashed.
He missed the one at the end of the Utah game. That's a makeable shot if he has it.
That's a makeable shot for Kobe Bryant of the afternoon.
In the NBA at converting turnovers into fast break points.
Makes it look easy. We've got a nice little pace going here early. Bryant, little shake and bake, draws the foul, put it in, and one.
Bryant absolutely dominated Miami's duo practically by himself, scoring 33 points, and went on a tear with his new mask. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what your favorite memory is of the Black Mamba. Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.